Welcome everyone to today's webinar, SharePoint on the iPad, Securely Untether Your Mobile Workforce, presented by RSC Solutions and Caligo. Before we begin today, a few housekeeping notes. All attendees are in listen-only mode for today's webinar. Any and all questions can be submitted during the presentation using the Q&A toolbar on the upper left-hand portion of your screen. Time permitting, we will try to answer as many questions in the queue as possible during Q&A. Once through the queue, we will open the floor to live questions. In order to do that, please raise your hand using the feedback toolbar item on the top right-hand portion of the screen during this period. The agenda for today: introductions, SharePoint 2010 overview and the state of mobility, Caligo, a secure SharePoint app for the iPad, their demonstration, next steps, questions, and more information. Today, presenting, myself, Garrett Veeder, Vice President of Marketing for RSC Solutions, Uday Etharajulu, VP and Chief Architect of Microsoft Applications, Steve Boyle, Director of Mobility and Operations, and Chantel Shave, Director of Marketing at Caligo Networks. RSC Solutions is a leading provider in technology-enabled business solutions combining IT expertise with experience to provide innovative IT solutions that address business needs and challenges of today's ever-changing marketplace. We've been around for 14 years. We're headquartered in New York City with 5 locations across North America and are a Microsoft Gold certified partner. We have deep industry expertise in building IT solutions for a number of verticals, including financial services, legal, and healthcare. SharePoint 2010 overview and the state of mobility. As many of you know, SharePoint 2010 has a plethora of new features in this latest version. Better support for the internet, more security features and flexibility managing permissions, and easy-to-use templates. I won't go into much detail about all of this, as for many of you it's a refresher, but it is important to note that there are many more workflow types. There's native support in Mozilla Firefox 3.0 and Opera, and there's an easy migration from SPS 2003 and MOS 2007. As we move into mobility, it's important to note that SharePoint 2010 has done a much better job of making SharePoint available in the mobile workforce. SharePoint alerts can be configured such that they can be delivered via SMS, and their picture libraries are supported, including thumbnail views and the ability to upload a photo. I will now turn the floor over to Steve Boyle and talk about the state of mobility. Steve, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, and thank you all for your time. Just to jump right into it, and talk a little bit about the slide. I think the slide sort of says it all. What we're looking at is multiple device types, form factors, as well as OS versions and interaction models. It's become very daunting for the enterprise to have to deal with these and get their corporate information out in a safe, secure manner. The typical life cycle for a mobile device at this point is 12 to 16 months, adding to the issues that the enterprise are experiencing. So if we take a look at this slide, and this slide, just to be clear, is from Q3 of 2011, we get a good feel for the market share of devices out in the wild. At this point, Apple has from Q3 2011, Apple had 28.3% of the market share, and Android devices had 42.8%. I think what we want to take away from this is that we're no longer living in a BlackBerry world. It also shows that there's heavy fragmentation in the Android market, and that enterprises or people are changing the way they consume information over the internet. This slide shows us that by 2014, the majority of internet use will be from a mobile device. we need to keep in mind that that is not only for consumer-based consumption, but the consumption habits of your users in the enterprise are changing. RC offers a number of mobile offerings, including mobile strategy creation, mobile process definition, infrastructure offerings including design, implementation, and optimization, as well as mobile device management or MDM consulting. We also offer mobility assessments and application development. Thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, Steve. And now we'll pass the floor to Chantel. Chantel, the floor is yours.
Thanks, gentlemen, and good morning, everyone. I'm Chantel Shades, and I'm the Director of Marketing at Colego. My presentation today is going to focus on two areas. First, we're going to look at how to replace consumer-grade file sharing services like Dropbox with mobile SharePoint access to ensure that you can maintain the integrity of your corporate data while still allowing your mobile workforce to take full advantage of their mobile devices. And then we'll look at Colego Briefcase for securely accessing and managing SharePoint from your iPad. After that, I'll hand things over to Tessa McKinnon, who's our corporate trainer here at Colego, and she's going to do a short demo on the Briefcase UI and its security features. So before I jump in, here's a quick overview of Colego. We were founded in 2000, and we've been 100% focused on SharePoint since 2007. We're also a Microsoft Gold certified partner. Our specialty is building apps that increase the adoption of SharePoint by making it really easy to use. And we do that by integrating SharePoint with everyday apps and devices like Microsoft Outlook, the desktop, smartphones, and today's topic, iPads. So here's a look at some of the over 4,800 customers that we have from around the world. Our solutions are used by organizations of all sizes and in all industries. And in fact, Microsoft themselves rely on Colego solutions to drive SharePoint adoption and support records management within their legal and corporate affairs department. So let's take a look at some recent trends and analyst predictions. There's no doubt that the iPad invasion is real, and it is only continuing to grow. Forrester Research is predicting that tablet sales will eclipse laptop sales by 2015. And we all know how well the iPad specifically has been selling. So the top chart here illustrates the explosive growth with over 15 million units sold in Q4 2011 alone. This chart hasn't been updated to include the Q1 2012 numbers, and in fact there was a small dip there to only 11 million units following the Christmas rush. But the fact remains that Apple is killing the competition. And as you can see from the chart below, Gartner predicts that Apple is going to continue to dominate the tablet segment through 2015. So these numbers are, of course, for all iPad sales, not just those used in business, but the numbers there are pretty staggering, too. In a recent IDG study of iPad use in the workplace, nearly 70% of the professionals in North America who own iPads are using them for business and personal use. So not only are iPads finding their way into the workplace, but they're also fast replacing traditional computing devices. According to a 2012 survey by IDC, 16% of professionals have completely replaced their laptop with an iPad, and 54% have partially replaced them. You can see here the iPad has also taken a significant chunk of other rival devices such as smartphones and even desktop PCs. So with the exponential rise in the use of iPads comes increased pressure for IT to support these devices. And here's a look at some numbers from Ernst & Young's Global Information Security Survey. These are from Q4 of last year. So currently, or at that date, only 14% officially supported tablets, and another 9% had tablets in wide use but did not support them. And as you can see here, 50% are currently evaluating support. So it's interesting that while the survey talks about organizations that are permitting their staff to use these tablets in the workplace, they're here anyway. So whether it's permitted or not, these devices are being brought into the organization and they're being used every day. So let's take a quick look at how people typically get content onto their iPads. In an unsupported environment, most people use an app on their desktop and an app on their iPad, and that's connected by a cloud-based service. So they'll move files into a folder on their desktop, and then that's uploaded to a third-party service like Dropbox, and then synced to the device. And this brings us to an important point for IT and for the enterprise in general. If someone on your staff is using Dropbox to sync content to their iPad, who owns that content? So if you look at the terms and conditions of Dropbox, it clearly states you retain full ownership of your stuff. By you, they mean you, the account owner, not you, the company that you work for. So if, for example, an employee leaves your company, any content that they've uploaded to Dropbox will stay there, and it's going to remain synced to their device. And with enterprise content sitting on the Dropbox server and on a bunch of people's iPads, just picture the e-discovery issues when you're not able to search these repositories to find relevant content if it's requested as part of a litigation proceeding. Or imagine the smoking gun that will arise when a copy of some content that you thought was disposed of in your records management system suddenly pops up because someone didn't delete that file from their Dropbox account. So is there anything that you as an IT or records manager can do to get that content deleted? Well, short of a court order or somehow convincing Dropbox that the account contains copyrighted material, short answer is no. And if you can't delete that content, you have a problem. So users like Dropbox because it's easy to use. There's an app for the iPad, the PC. They cache the files on their iPad and they keep them synced with their PC, Mac, or phone. And they can share their Dropbox folder with other people who in turn can access it through the browser, on their desktop, or iPad. And that's great that it's easy for users, but this can be a nightmare for your organization. In order to transfer files from one device to another, users need to first upload them to the cloud, and moving sensitive corporate information out of the secure enterprise data environment to a public cloud and then to a mobile device is very risky. So in a well-documented security breach from June of 2011, all of Dropbox's user accounts became unlocked for 4 hours, during which time anyone could access anyone else's Dropbox user account. And for many organizations, that incident was what triggered the realization that this is a problem that needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed now. So Dropbox isn't the only public cloud provider that has issues around security. Here's a quick look at how other public cloud providers versus Office 365 are handling the issue. I think this 2011 study on the security of cloud computing providers shed some light on the importance of security. And you can see here in this study, almost 80% said that they allocate less than 10% of their resources to security and control-related activities. And only 19% saw security as a competitive advantage for their organization. And this is in sharp contrast to Microsoft's public position of security in Office 365. And the quote at the bottom there is from their security white paper. It says, Office 365 is designed to deliver the enterprise-grade security you require to move to the cloud with confidence. Our data centers are designed, built, and managed using a defense-in-depth strategy at both the physical and logical layers. And our services are engineered to be secure using a security development lifecycle. Office 365 makes it easy for users and administrators to access and use data and services while following security best practices. So let's look at how Caligo Briefcase works with SharePoint and also with our other Caligo products to make an enterprise-class solution that's as easy to use as Dropbox. You can see here the organization's Office 365 or on-premises installation sits at the center. For organizations already using SharePoint, your users are already familiar with it. Their data is stored there, for example, in their My Sites, and permissions are set up, so there's no additional ramping up. Now, the magic comes when you add Caligo to this. All of our products install client-side, so there's nothing to install on the server, and they work with any version of SharePoint. So what you see in this example here is Caligo Email Manager, which is a plug-in to Microsoft Outlook, installed on a user's PC, and then Caligo Briefcase on the iPad. Content on those devices is kept in sync with SharePoint through Caligo. You drop an email into the folder in Outlook on your PC, and it appears on the iPad. Simple. And because you're using SharePoint at the heart of it all, you're able to centrally manage content. You can add or delete content as required, and if, for example, an item has some sort of retention policy on it, when it expires, it's deleted from the document library, and it'll also be automatically deleted from the user's iPad. So let's take a closer look at iPads themselves and some of the security issues around them. I'm going to talk a little bit about jailbreaking, the application data cache, how to secure SharePoint user credentials and passcode, and a couple additional security concerns regarding data wipe capabilities and screenshot protection. So we probably all know something about jailbreaking, but let me just define it here. Jailbreaking allows users to gain full access to the iOS operating system and bypass built-in security features. Jailbroken iPads open the device to hacker attacks that not only enable access to unencrypted app data stores, also reading weak keychain entries. And user credentials are a very attractive target for an attacker because by hijacking the credentials, they can gain access to it's possible to gain access to the entire enterprise network infrastructure, because in many cases the SharePoint account is the same as the Active Directory account. And organizations should understand the potential security threats around jailbroken devices and implement strict controls to prevent it. Mobile device management software can certainly help here, along with ensuring that the apps that you use to access SharePoint are built with enterprise security in mind. In addition to restricting a user's ability to install applications, MDM software can also provide scanning capabilities to detect whether the operating system has been compromised. Another serious security concern on iPads is the fact that many consumer-grade apps store their data unencrypted in the data store. And this enables anyone with access to the device or hacked into the device to view and copy the data. So a consideration is that for some of these apps, even if the user is just viewing the file and not caching the data on the device, that data can still be found within the file system itself, and that data is unencrypted. Something else to remember is that even if you've selected an extremely secure SharePoint application, if you enable users to open the files in other applications, the data in that file may now be served to an unencrypted data store. So now you've moved the content from a secure data store to an insecure one. So it's important to ensure that the app you use to cache your SharePoint content, or even just to view files, has strong encryption of the data store, or of any temporary files that are created in the file system. An important consideration here is also to ensure that the app itself is password protected. And to ensure that you're not letting people unintentionally change their stored data from being encrypted to being unencrypted, you need to be able to limit the functionality, such as the ability to open in another app if that's important to you. The ability to wipe a device is also critical for enterprise security. So whether a device is lost or stolen, being able to remote wipe by an administrator or for the app to automatically wipe the data if the passcode is entered incorrectly is a way to ensure some security here. Another area that most people are not aware of regarding iPads is the ability for iOS automatic screenshot apps to capture screen data when switching between applications. So make sure you're using an MDM system that enables remote data wipe. Make sure that the app is capable of wiping the local data cache if the password is entered incorrectly, say X amount of times. And find an app that ensures that the SharePoint app blanks the screen when changing between applications. So Cligo Briefcase is configured to automatically hide the visible contents when it enters an inactive state. And this protects the contents from being captured by iOS screenshot apps when the OS stores the current app state before it switches between the two apps. So user credentials and passcodes. I talked a little about this in the jailbreak section, but I think it warrants some further discussion because if a hacker can get access to the SharePoint user credentials stored on the device, it basically gives them a key to an organization's entire network infrastructure. Or if they can crack the app password, they can get access to the content being stored on the device. So how an app stores this important information on the device is something to pay attention to. The obvious recommendation is to ensure the SharePoint app stores its user credentials and passcodes in an encrypted form in Keychain, and make sure that the app passcode is mandatory and cannot be disabled by the user. So with that background on device security and the issues surrounding the public cloud and consumer-based file sharing apps, I'll now hand things over to Tessa for a demo of Cligo Briefcase and its security features. Tessa?
Thanks, Chantel. I'm just going to share my iPad app on the screen. It'll be coming up in just a second. So everyone knows that Apple is known for its sleek interfaces, which isn't necessarily true for SharePoint. When we designed Cligo Briefcase, this was one of our goals, to give it an iPad feel, using standard Apple UI elements and touch techniques. At the same time, it's still very familiar to the SharePoint user, so there's no learning curve to overcome. Cligo Briefcase supports both on-premise sites as well as in the cloud or Office 365 sites. Once a site is synced, as you can see, the document libraries and lists display on the left pane of the screen, while the contents of a selected library display in the right pane. Green circles overlaid on the document type icon indicate that the content is synced and is now available offline. Users can configure content to be available at the site, folder, or document level. An orange circle indicates the content is in the process of being synced, while a gray circle, such as on the keys file in the shared documents library on screen, indicates that the content will not be synced. Preview pane lets you see the content of the file before expanding it to full screen, so you can be sure you're opening the right file. Briefcase supports 23 common file types, including Microsoft Office documents, images, videos, and emails as .mst files. Many organizations are storing email in SharePoint, whether for collaboration or records management. For them, the ability to support email file types and to view email files on the iPad using Colego Briefcase was critical. From the full screen view, Colego Briefcase provides a menu with a variety of actions users can take with documents. The Open In list displays applications that support the particular file type displayed. There are SharePoint-specific options such as Copy Link, which copies the specific link to the SharePoint item on the server, or Email as Link, which launches the email client and embeds the link to the SharePoint item in the email message. Emailing SharePoint documents as links greatly increases the security of the items because the recipient of the item needs to have the appropriate credentials to access the link. You also have the option to email the item as an attachment, to print the item, and view the item details. Some of these options can be disabled via our Colego Administrator product. For example, the ability to email as an attachment, open in, or print can be disabled to increase the security of content, limiting it to being displayed solely on the iPad. Documents can be uploaded to Briefcase from programs such as Docs2Go using the Open In menu. Dialog lets users upload documents to any location in any connected site. Using Briefcase, we've retained the integrity and context of the documents and files and provide the ability to view all the document properties, including all the metadata for the documents. As many of you know, Colego is very well known for its cache and sync technology. And in fact, we were the first company to build a SharePoint application specifically designed to provide offline access to SharePoint. Colego's offline products are used by literally hundreds of thousands of users worldwide. Briefcase is also built on this robust and tested sync engine. We also provide a great deal of flexibility in terms of controlling sync intervals, storage limit, the site, and which libraries and lists in the site that you want to sync. These can be configured in the settings section for each site. Using to sync specific views in lists or libraries can be set at the specific list or library level. Application-specific controls include setting limits on the global storage and for managing sync over 3G, 4G. As many of us who travel internationally are aware, data transfer while roaming can be very expensive, so we wanted to ensure that users were able to turn off this option. With Colego's powerful cache and sync technology, users are assured they will always have the most up-to-date content on their iPads, and if that content changes on the SharePoint server, it is automatically updated on the iPad. Enterprise security is a cornerstone of Colego Briefcase and is a feature that sets it apart from the other SharePoint apps available today. We spent a huge amount of time working with organizations that had extensive security requirements while we were building and testing this product. We wanted our data protection measures to ensure that sensitive corporate information is encrypted, locked, and removable on demand. And that's not limited to the data itself, but also to how we store and handle SharePoint credentials. So as Chantal mentioned, in addition to the iPad's passcode, there is a separate passcode to access Colego Briefcase. The application uses hardware-based encryption for all stored data using AES 256-bit encryption. This cannot be disabled by users and enables instantaneous remote wipe. If removal of data is required, the encryption key is discarded and all data is rendered useless. Colego Briefcase also supports all SharePoint authentication methods, whether you're using claims-based or classic mode. In the event an iPad is lost or stolen, an administrator can remotely wipe data on the device. A remote wipe occurs the moment an iPad gets in range of Internet access and establishes a link to receive a push notification. By using an MDM system, you can also just wipe the SharePoint data stored and not the personal data the user has stored on the device. However, for cases when someone attempts a brute force attack on an iPad in a controlled environment, the device can be configured to perform a local wipe. For example, a local wipe occurs if a user attempts to try different passcodes up to a limit of 10 attempts. Each attempt is met with an increasing delay before the next reattempt to deter legitimate users who have forgotten their passcode. Once a wipe is triggered, local or otherwise, the data is instantly gone. To sync SharePoint data, the user's SharePoint credentials are stored in the device's keychain. This is an encrypted key storage that provides protection of sensitive data outside of the app data area. Access is controlled by iOS and can be revoked by removing the device's provisioning. The keychain provides the highest form of trust chain security and is used in the application's design to protect the user's credentials. Briefcase also blanks the screen when changing applications, which inhibits a rogue application from taking a screen capture. Another part of the enterprise security features of Briefcase is the ability to restrict the SharePoint sites accessible and the content available offline via Caligo Administrator. This provides a number of iPad-specific management capabilities, including the ability to push out sites and document libraries to specific users or groups, the ability to set several security-based configuration settings, the ability to restrict what sites can be accessed and how the content can be shared, and the ability to restrict various item-level options, such as print, open-in, and email as attachments. Pairing Caligo Administrator with Caligo Briefcase enables organizations to retain control of their information assets in a way that is secure and manageable. So in summary, Caligo Briefcase offers the first truly enterprise-class SharePoint solution for the iPad. It provides an easy way for organizations to use SharePoint to create a secure mobile enterprise data environment and addresses all the security concerns around mobile devices and enterprise data access and storage. When paired with Caligo Administrator, you get centralized IT management and administration and seamless integration with every Caligo SharePoint app for email and document management. Thank you for being with us today. I'd now like to pass it back to Garrett.
Thank you very much, Tessa. That was a wonderful demo. Next steps for all of our participants today on the webinar. We are offering a SharePoint 2010 assessment, The Art of the Possible. It's an envisioning workshop, typically about a half-day investment, delivered by our SharePoint practice leadership. Allows you to brainstorm ideas and articulate your desired outcomes for your SharePoint iteration, and we'll be able to help you see how SharePoint can connect and further your business process. Also, every participant is also invited to download the Caligo Briefcase Executive Guide, which outlines the top 5 security concerns for organizations and how they are addressed in the Caligo Briefcase Enterprise. Also follow Caligo @contributor on Twitter. Before we hop into the Q&A, I just wanted to thank all the presenters today for their great job. We have quite a few questions in Q&A at this particular moment, so let's get right to it as we're getting close to the top of the hour. First question in the queue, I think Chantel would probably be something for you guys. It says, what is Caligo's roadmap for supporting other devices like iPhones and Android?
Yeah, good question. I should probably have addressed that during my presentation. But Caligo Briefcase for iPhone is actually in final QA now, and it should be available later this month or early next. And Android is definitely on the roadmap, but I think we're probably looking at more like the second half of the year.
Excellent. As I said, the Q&A is sort of blowing up, and as I mentioned, we are getting to the top of the hour, so let's see how many of these we can chew through. I think another one for you guys would be, how do you overcome the need to use a VPN to access SharePoint from a mobile device?
Briefcase supports Forefront UAG Gateway, and that provides secure SSL access to SharePoint. So With that in place, users don't actually need to launch a separate VPN app on their iPad.
Excellent. One other question for you is, what about custom lists based on SharePoint server form templates?
Sure. As of the last release, Caligo Briefcase supports form libraries and InfoPass form authoring.
Excellent. As we have come up close to the top of the hour, for those of you whose questions we weren't able to answer in the Q&A, please do not worry. We will download those and pass them over to each presenter as we see fit. Again, I want to thank each and every one of you for taking a few minutes of your time today to join us on this webinar. Chantel and Tessa, thank you very much for your wonderful presentation. Steve, thank you for yours. And with that, we will end today's webinar. I thank you all for attending.